Well, we have a fantastic guest joining us right now. You may recognize her because she's been on an episode. If you're an OG listener to the podcast, good for you guys, but you will maybe recognize her. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. I am so excited to be back on Jews with the News. My name is Cassie Beisheim, and I'm actually Jack and Eli's best friend. So it's a pretty big deal that I'm here.
Very, very. Okay, so I guess we'll just open the floor to you. You're welcome to speak what's on your mind, any thoughts, any feelings. Go for it.
So, with specifically what's been happening today, I think the thing at the forefront of my mind is the fact that, in my eyes, people being surprised by what happened today is frankly surprising to me. Because at the end of the day, I think that what happened today is a perfect example of exactly how fascism functions in our society, how white supremacy upholds everything in our society, and how there is such a lack of humanity and education among so many people in our country that like these types of things are bound to happen. It's not surprising to me. I saw this one tweet today that I thought was really funny. That said, it was something like, "You guys are so surprised seeing the police not doing anything about these protests, but y'all don't get confused when you don't see Miley and Hannah in the same room." And I was like,
Right.
exactly. And I know that there's been similar tweets, about when the BLM movement was going on. And I think it's just really crucial to understand that like it's really hard to grasp this idea that these systems are inherently bad. Like it's the same thing with um uh I think there was like a similar tweet about during like the BLM movement, like when it was really at its peak in June, about like the reason why you don't see police officers shutting down KKK rallies is the same reason you don't see Miley and Hannah in the same room. Like these systems of oppression all function together. I don't know if I'm explaining this well with tying it in specifically to what happened at the Capitol, but I just think that that is what's at the forefront of my mind is an understanding that I feel like a lot of Americans don't have about what this really means, and that it's not really a shock.
Yeah. Uh, so maybe to go like one step further, right? So we've seen, right, Senator Josh Hawley, President Trump, basically inciting this violence, right? And they were kind of speaking, right, in tones that almost promoted,
Yeah.
the communities to go. But you're also saying, which I think correctly, that this was bound to happen, just systematically, right? So like regardless of rhetoric, this was bound to happen at some point in our country's history, and this rhetoric kind of sped it up until today. Is that kind of
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I definitely would say that that's the point that I'm getting at. And I think that, yeah, what I'm trying to say is that it was bound to happen for sure. And that's because of how our society just inherently functions. And like it's just so clear. And I like all, as I said earlier, the comparisons of what happened during Black Lives Matter protests and riots, which in my opinion were justified, but they were being shamed by lots of people, mostly white people, um, and taken down. I have several friends who were like tear gassed and physically harmed. And then like, yeah, there was a little of that going on here, but to be frank, it was performative and like it was ridiculous, but it's not surprising.
Now, as tumultuous of an event that this was,
Mm.
and how widespread and how there have been a lot of people giving their opinions on it, whether that be uh, like obviously the media, politicians, other foreign officials. Do you think that this is like a wake up call to America to see how like bad these systems really are? Or do you think this is just a product of it and nothing's going to change?
See, what I think is tricky about America in general is that we sensationalize events in the same way that we did the Black Lives Matter movement, but we're also really good at letting those events go, which is on purpose. That's, as I said, like this is all part of the system. We are supposed to be desensitized to these awful things because we're supposed to believe there's no alternative. Like that is really the most major part of all this, is that we're supposed to believe like, okay, well, all we can do is vote these Democrats into office, which we did. So like, yay us, look at these crazy people. Okay, move on to the next fucking horrible, I don't know if I can swear, sorry, world event.
It's fine. I mean, it's not like we're making money off this, so.
That's true. Not kid friendly. But like the next horrible world event, the next thing that is a historical event that is just being crammed into smaller and smaller periods of time. So to answer your question, I wish that this could be a wake-up call, but I think that our system is designed to make people steer in the wrong direction. As I was saying with like the whole idea of like voting people into office being the solution and new legislation being the solution, when in reality, like there's so much that needs to be done changing the mindsets of Americans to make actual change, that like an event like this isn't necessarily going to steer things off their already inevitable course, in my opinion.
I want to talk about kind of the irony that's occurring here and kind of your thoughts on this. So the people that were literally trying to break into the U.S. Capitol and stop these, constitutional procedures from taking place are the same people who, just months ago were yelling that we need to uphold, right, so many of these structures, that, the Constitution and these laws are, crucial to how society functions. And so I kind of want to get your take on what that means for that group of people, and also what it means for the group of people that are now saying uphold these institutions, and before we're saying we need change.
Yeah. I think that irony is also another thing that I think is so common. And I think that it's comedic to me how both political parties in the United States love to call each other out for hypocrisy, when in reality, it's you're gonna do whatever's convenient for your own benefit. It's the same problem with that, like, is overarching with the issues of capitalism and how our country functions. It's always going to be about benefiting people on the top, and those people on the top are going to tell you, hey, you got to do anything that you can to benefit our party so that I can stay doing great. And that's where the hypocrisy comes from, in my opinion. I think that's why they're willing to skew things their way no matter what, because they've been brainwashed very well. How it all works, in my personal opinion.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. This has been a great conversation. I'm glad you were able to share your thoughts and your feelings and your opinions.
Of course, I've got plenty of those.